Hi, my name is Tramaine. I'm an artist from California, and now I have an exhibition here at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Antwerp. Art is like a means of expression, but it can be paradoxical, where it can, more than one truth can exist at that moment. And for me, art is something that first, it does something to my organs inside. There's like sensations that occur. I feel it first viscerally, and then there's like this kind of like a thinking process that occurs. But for me, it's still mysterious. But of course, I guess in relation also to the title of this exhibition for me, because I chose the term MASTERBLASTER, which has, of course, like pop culture references, but it's also a way to redefine or re-examine skill. Frank Zappa, the musician, his son, Ahmet Zappa, has this term. He says, learn and destroy. So it's basically, for me, coming to terms with like certain techniques and skills, but also getting to that point where you can leap over that, where you are able to start to like improvise or, redefine skill. And then that, when you work and you create and you do it over and over again, it becomes your own. And that is my definition as an artist. I always wanted to make art, but I think children also always start that way. The thing that was difficult for me was that I didn't think in this lifetime I could be an artist. I thought I would have to die and come back and remember it, because I couldn't see a way out of the United States and paying for art school or finding a community where I was living. But I always wanted to do it, and I always made, but it was always that way. I just didn't know how to do it, and just through time and working and going to school or earning money, then I was like, okay, these are my plans. I have a limited amount of time in my lifetime. I got to do this. Yeah. For me, it's looking at how people deal with their humanity, how they overcome obstacles, how they manage to maintain something in them, and the stories that occur. With this work here, which is partially based off of Bobbejaan Schoepen, who has an amusement park in Herentals. I think it's amazing that he was able to, like, not only was he a musician and an entertainer, he also was a really good businessman, but he was extremely smart in creating a persona. And that was inspiring because it's uplifting. Because I'm from California, I am from the Wild West, so it was really cool to see how he used that to create this public persona as a musician and entertainer. And that's inspiring, like how he probably had many difficulties in his life too. He was married, he had a family, he ran businesses, but he still was able to have some kind of joy and exuberance. And that's really uplifting. How do people live their lives exuberantly somehow? Even if it's not seen, how do they continue that? And for me, it's really nice to know about. And that inspires me to make art. I think there's this one called I'm going to sound ignorant here, the Eisenheim altarpiece. There's image of like Christ. He's being crucified, but he's extremely like green and gray, and his hair is kind of reddish, and it's just his skin is totally defiled. It's like just rotten and bleeding. I've never seen it in person. I've only seen copies, but it was just a really visceral embodiment of suffering. And this for me was nothing to tie it in with like religion or anything. It was just a really nice work of art. And also Francis Bacon. That was like the beginning when I was in art school or going to my university. And other things that inspire me is just material culture everywhere. In the drugstore, at the supermarket, at the plastic euro store also. All those things are great. The one thing I can't do without is music, of course. That's just the beginning. That's the soul, in a way, of becoming inspired, or just maintaining that as well. Yeah. I was listening quite a bit to James Brown, the godfather of funk, when I was making this magenta chair over here, and and also I was listening to the Cramps when I was making this work here, and actually I took a lyric from one of their songs, because this work is called Chicken Frying, Fire-Breathing Son of a Gun. And that was a really good lyric from one of their songs. I just really loved it. Yo-Yo Ma, he's a celloist. And someone else said this too. I think it was John Adams or John Smith, some old politician in the States. They had these similar ways of thinking. Yo-Yo Ma said something like, it takes 3 generations to make an artist if you're an immigrant. Because the first generation has to climb out of poverty, the second generation has to get an education, and this third generation can pursue art. Migration of forms can also be, appropriation in a way, but in the context of this exhibition, I would say it's, for instance, I'll give you an example with Godzilla. Over there on that table, there's a ceramic that I made. It's a foot, and it's Godzilla's foot. And it came about, Godzilla, it's not a he or she, I don't know, is an example of a migration of a form, because when I was 8, my mom told me that I was asking about Godzilla, and she's like, oh yeah, the Japanese made him, but he came about after World War II, because he came about after the A-bomb was dropped on Japan. And I was only recently looking into Godzilla, and someone interpreted it, and I agree, that Godzilla was this way that the Japanese culture manifested the violence that came about, because his skin resembles the charred skin of bomb victims, how it keloids over and scars over. And then also he spews radioactive flames. And radiation is, usually you can't see it. When people go to clean up sites, like with Fukushima, they have to protect themselves with this thing that is looming in the atmosphere, but they can't see it. And he's this manifestation, well, Godzilla is a manifestation, but Godzilla entered into the pop culture realm. And now many generations have known of Godzilla, and this is a migration of a form, It starts off with violence, and how do you make sense of it, and then it goes into pop culture. So that's a long explanation of migration of forms. A lot of these color palettes, of course, are borrowed. I mean, I'll look at things in pop culture and I'll study it, because certain things have really great understanding of color, like certain children's television programming on television that I grew up with. And but this is all like a surface appearance. It's this thing, that grabs your attention viscerally. But for me, I view this as just like a meeting point for all types of people. Like the pop culture, these candy-coated colorings are meeting points for then later that you can start a dialogue, you can start talking. And when I was making this show, I realized there are many ongoing, reoccurring motifs that occur in the works. So with these hanging fish, the form, when I was making it, to me resembled like a car fender. And I've made works in the past where they refer to automobiles or trains or planes, which were taken from the 1940s and the 1930s. And all these forms are actually containers of histories. And that's what creates their aesthetic. Being raised around many different aunties who helped take care of me and my sister and all my cousins, that was always nice, because I have one auntie, she's from Hong Kong, but she immigrated to the States when she was really young. But to me, she would smoke cigarettes. They were called cool cigarettes, C-O-O-L or K-O-O-L. And when she would drive her van, because she had like 5 of us kids going to swim practice or karate, she would always stick her leg up, like right against the steering wheel, like drive like that and smoke. But she introduced me really to pop culture, like the music, because she was 20 when she had her first kid. So I was introduced to like things in the 80s that no one else would show me because she was much younger, you know? And they were really responsible, her and my uncle. They're still alive now. But she listened to a really cool music station, KMEL, and they would have Janet Jackson and Babyface and all these old school R&B music things, and she would perm her hair. And to me, she was extremely American and Californian, but also Chinese. And that influenced me. She introduced me to Madonna and all that stuff. But yeah.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Tramaine.
Thank you, Malika and Oliver.